May 31st, 2014, Waukesha, Wisconsin. It was a warm, beautiful late spring day. The kind of day where kids should be riding their bikes, playing in the sprinklers, or getting ready for the summer vacation that was just about to begin. But on this specific day, in a quiet suburban neighborhood, a nightmare was about to unfold. A nightmare that would blur the line between digital fiction and physical reality and shock the entire world. Three 12-year-old girls walked into a patch of woods behind their neighborhood to play a game of hide and seek. Only two of them would walk out. What happened next in those woods was not just a crime, it was a psychological horror story. It was the day a fictional monster, born from a simple Photoshop contest on an internet forum, bled into the real world and demanded a blood sacrifice. To understand how two normal, honor roll students could look their best friend in the eye and stab her 19 times, we first need to understand how a digital parasite infected their minds. To understand the tragedy, we have to look at the victims and the perpetrators not as monsters, but as children. Peyton Lutwine was the victim, described by everyone who knew her as sweet, empathetic, and kind. She was the glue that held her friend group together, a girl who loved animals and always tried to see the good in people. Then there were the attackers, Anissa Weier and Morgan Geyser. Morgan and Anissa were inseparable. They were best friends who did everything together. But beneath the surface of their childhood friendship, their home lives and their psychological states were vastly different. And those differences would ultimately create a fatal dynamic. Anissa came from a strict, highly religious household. She felt constantly pressured to be perfect, to follow the rules, and to never question authority. She was deeply anxious and desperately sought approval from those around her. Morgan, on the other hand, had a history of mental health struggles. She experienced severe mood swings, had a vivid, almost overwhelming imagination, and often struggled to distinguish between her internal thoughts and the external world. In 2011, the internet was a different place for kids. They were not just watching short, mindless videos on their phones. They were exploring the deep, weird, and unregulated corners of the web. And that is where they found creepypasta. For the uninitiated, creepypasta was a genre of user-generated horror stories shared on internet forums. The crown jewel of this genre, the story that would eventually change these girls' lives forever, was Slender Man. Slender Man was described as a tall, unnaturally thin figure in a black suit, with no face and tentacle-like appendages protruding from his back. He did not just scare you, he stalked you. He abducted children. He induced paranoia. The lore surrounding him was constantly expanding, with users adding new rules, new abilities, and new terrifying details to the myth. Most kids read these stories, got a little spooked, and then went outside to play. They knew it was fake. But for Morgan Geyser, the Slender Man was not a story. It was a blueprint. Morgan began to create her own Slender Man accounts. She drew him, she wrote stories about him, she immersed herself completely in the lore. But then, the fiction started to leak into her reality. She began telling Anissa that she was seeing Slender Man in her bedroom. She claimed he was teleporting. She claimed he was speaking to her, telling her what to do. Anissa, desperate for her best friend's approval and already feeling isolated in her strict home, did not question it. She accepted it. The infection had taken hold. They were not just fans of a horror story anymore. According to the lore they were consuming, they were becoming what were called proxies, humans who do the bidding of the Slender Man in exchange for his protection. And the Slender Man, they believed, was demanding a toll. By early 2014, the obsession had completely consumed them. Morgan and Anissa created a shared digital journal. If you read through it today, it reads like the descent into madness of two people trapped in a shared, inescapable delusion. They wrote about how the Slender Man was getting angry with them. They wrote about how he was threatening to kill their families, their friends, and anyone they loved if they did not prove their loyalty. In their journal, they explicitly wrote that they had to prove to the Slender Man that they were worthy. They had to do something terrible. They discussed ways to kill themselves to become proxies, but quickly realized that killing themselves would not help their families. The law dictated that to become a high-ranking proxy, to gain the Slender Man's ultimate favor and protect their loved ones from his wrath, they had to offer a sacrifice. They needed to kill someone.
They did not just wake up one day and decide to commit murder. This was a slow, calculated descent into darkness. They researched methods, they watched horror movies, they argued about the logistics, and then they bought a knife online. But who would be the sacrifice? They debated killing a random stranger, but were afraid of getting caught. They debated killing a teacher, but then they settled on someone they knew, someone they could easily lure into the woods without raising suspicion. They chose Peyton. It is crucial to understand that Morgan and Anissa did not hate Peyton. In their twisted, delusional minds, they actually loved her. But the paranoia had completely overridden their empathy. They believed that if they did not kill Peyton, the Slender Man would kill all of them. It was a horrific, twisted utilitarian calculus made by two 12-year-old girls whose brains had been hijacked by an internet myth. The date was set. May 31st, 2014, the day before summer vacation was supposed to officially begin. The morning of May 31st started like any other. Morgan and Anissa went over to Peyton's house. The three girls were giggling, talking, and planning to play hide and seek in the wooded area near the Nicolette Elementary School. Peyton had no idea. She thought she was just spending the day with her best friends. They walked deep into the woods, far enough that the sounds of the suburban neighborhood faded away, replaced by the rustling of leaves and the chirping of birds. They played hide and seek for a little while, but Morgan and Anissa were waiting for the right moment. The tension in the woods was thick, though only two of the girls knew why. At one point, Morgan pulled Peyton aside. She told her she needed to show her something. Peyton trusted her. She followed Morgan into a secluded clearing. Anissa was already waiting there. Without warning, Morgan pulled out the knife. Morgan lunged at Peyton. She stabbed her. Peyton, confused and terrified, tried to fight back. She begged them to stop. She asked them why they were doing this. But Morgan and Anissa were in a state of sheer psychotic panic. They believed the Slender Man was watching them from the trees. They believed this was the only way to save their families. Morgan stabbed Peyton in the arms, the legs, and the torso. Anissa joined in, holding Peyton down, stabbing her as well. In total, they stabbed their best friend 19 times. Miraculously, impossibly, Peyton did not die in those woods. As Morgan and Anissa finally stopped, believing they had completed the sacrifice, they grabbed their bags and walked away. They actually stopped at a nearby bathroom to wash the blood off their knives and their hands, acting with a chilling detachment. Meanwhile, bleeding from 19 wounds, with a punctured lung, Peyton Leutwein did something incredible. She refused to die. She dragged herself out of the wood. She crawled onto a nearby paved path. By pure chance, a bicyclist came riding down the path. He saw a girl covered in blood crawling toward him. He immediately called 911, screaming into the phone that there was a girl who had been stabbed and was covered in blood. Peyton was rushed to the hospital. She underwent emergency surgery. Against all medical odds, she survived. But while Peyton was fighting for her life in the hospital, the police were already knocking on the doors of Morgan and Anissa's houses. And the interrogations that followed would reveal a level of chilling detachment that would shock the entire world. When police first brought Morgan and Anissa in, they did not confess right away. They tried to claim a ghost did it. They tried to claim it was a random stranger. But as the detectives pressed them, showing them the evidence, the truth spilled out. In the interrogation room, Morgan Geyser looked the detectives in the eye and explained her motives with a terrifying, flat affect. She did not cry. She did not show remorse. When asked why she stabbed Peyton, Morgan's response was recorded in the police transcripts. She told them that she wanted to prove to the Slender Man that she was worthy. She wanted to be his proxy. The detective, visibly stunned, asked her if she understood that Peyton could have died. Morgan's response was that she knew it was a possibility, but that it was necessary. She explained that the Slender Man had been communicating with her, that he lived in the Nicolette forest, and that if they did not kill Peyton, he would kill their families. When the detective asked her if she felt bad for Peyton, Morgan paused and then said that she felt bad for her, but she had to do it. The Slender Man made. Anissa's interrogation was slightly different. As the hours went on, the delusion began to crack. Anissa started to realize the gravity of what they had done. She began to cry. She told detectives that Morgan was the one who forced her to do it, that she was just following orders because she was terrified of the Slender Man. But the detectives pointed out a crucial detail. Anissa had actively participated. She had held Peyton down. She had stabbed her. When asked about the Slender Man, Anissa admitted that she had never actually seen him. She only believed in him because Morgan told her he was real, but by then it was too late. The shared psychosis had already resulted in a near-fatal tragedy. The police were left with a horrifying realization. These girls were not faking it to get out of trouble. They genuinely, deeply believed they had saved the world by sacrificing their best friend. The case sent shockwaves across the globe. Headlines screamed about the dangers of the internet. Parents panicked, deleting creepypasta stories and banning their kids from the web. But the legal system had to figure out how to handle a crime committed by children who were legally sane but psychologically broken. Morgan and Anissa were charged with first-degree intentional homicide. Because of the brutality of the crime, the judge ruled they would be tried as adults. They faced up to 65 years in prison. Their paths in the legal system diverged. Anissa's defense team argued that she was heavily influenced by Morgan's mental illness. Anissa eventually pleaded guilty to attempted second-degree intentional homicide as part of a plea deal. She was sentenced to 25 years in prison, with the chance for early release. In recent years, Anissa has been released from prison, trying to rebuild a life that was shattered at age 12. But Morgan's case went to trial. Morgan's defense pleaded not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. During the trial, psychological experts evaluated her. The diagnosis was staggering. Morgan was suffering from early onset schizophrenia. The Slender Man was not just an internet story to her. He was a manifestation of a severe psychotic break. The delusions were real to her brain. However, the prosecution argued that she knew right from wrong. She planned the attack, she bought the knife, she washed the blood off. The jury rejected the insanity plea. Morgan was found guilty. But the judge, recognizing her severe mental illness, showed a degree of leniency regarding the sentence. Instead of adult prison, Morgan was sentenced to 40 years in a secure mental health facility. In her emotional statement to the court, the judge said that Morgan had taken a beautiful, vibrant girl and tried to take her life, but that she was also a child who was suffering from a terrible illness. So, where does that leave us today? Morgan remains in a mental health facility, receiving the psychiatric treatment she desperately needed years before the stabbing. She will be eligible for release in the 2030. And Peyton Leutwein is the true hero of this story. She survived 19 stabs. She went on to graduate high school, attend college, and become an advocate for bullying prevention and mental health awareness. She refused to let the darkness in the woods define her life.
The Slender Man stabbing is a terrifying reminder of the fragility of the human mind, especially in childhood. It shows us what happens when the lines between digital fiction and physical reality blur, and when mental illness goes unnoticed in the shadows of the internet. We like to think of monsters as things that hide under the bed, but sometimes the monsters are the stories we tell ourselves. If this deep dive into the psychology of the Slender Man case kept you hooked, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. And do not forget to answer the question I pinned in the comments below. If you found out your best friend was communicating with a fictional monster, at what point would you have gone to the police? Let me know below. Stay curious, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.